Okay, so welcome back. I hope that you are all safe and welcome to our last topic for our module number 3, and it's entitled Critical Analysis and the Future of Science and Technology. So basically, we'll discuss first what do we expect in terms of what are the advances that we are expecting to see in the near future, and also we will be discussing about frameworks of how we can analyze how these technologies affect society. So let's discuss first where we are now in history in terms of technological advances. So there are many scholars that agree that we are now in the fourth industrial revolution. And the fourth industrial revolution or fire is characterized by the following advancement. First, there's a lot of digital innovation. So compared before, most of our operations are digitalized. Second, there is a proliferation of different mobile technologies, like, for example, your cell phone, your laptops, your gadgets, your tablets, and even other things that are directly related to specific discipline operations are also mobile now. And then, of course, internet, which is very important and is very much immersed in our society. And most of the things that we use have sensors like fingerprint scanners, iris scanners, and also thermal scanners. So there are many things that collect data in terms of biometrics in most of the gadgets that we use. And of course, there's faster diffusion of technologies. There is increased rate of obsolescence. Like this year you have iPhone 11, next year you'll have iPhone 12, and there are many features that you can no longer use in old models. So the things that we are using get obsolete faster. And now we have also digitization of many operations, accounting operations, education operations. Most of them are digitized, and also there's a lot of automation. We just key in a few data and then we get results right away. And of course, there's increased globalization more than anything else. Of course, it's halted now that we have a pandemic, but that's also one of the reasons why we have a pandemic now, because of the increased rates of globalizations that we have been experiencing in the last decade. And of course, there's increased consumption, there's increased consumerism of many things that used to be not consumable. Like, for example, your TikTok, there's an increased democratization of expressions, and now we can create actual jobs from TikTok, IG, which didn't have, or jobs that didn't exist before. So, what do we expect in the near future, and what are the different drivers that will increase this rate of technological advances? So, first one, we have the physical drivers of the fourth industrial revolution. The first one is that there would be an increased rate of production and use of autonomous vehicles. Of course, Tesla is working on that, and there are many companies that are also following suit. And then, of course, there's increased rate of 3D printing. So this advances materials generation. And again, we have seen also how 3D printing has been helping in this time of pandemic, wherein PPEs and different devices used to fight COVID is being produced by 3D printing. There's increased advancement in terms of robotics, not just parts of the body, but now robots are becoming more human-like. And then, of course, production of new materials that are renewable, formable, and of course, nanotechnology that has many potentials in terms of medicine and materials production. So there. Another set of drivers that increases the advancement in the fourth industrial revolution are digital drivers. Like, first, we have the Internet of Things. So what is Internet of Things? This is the interconnectedness of the different products, services, and places that we have in the world. Like, for example, your cell phone is connected to your Apple Watch, and also your cell phone is connected to your bank. Your cell phone is connected to your restaurant, to Grab, to McDonald's, and to many other services. So basically, most of the connectivities in our lives are being embedded into this web that we have that we call internet, and that is the reason why it's so frustrating to be in this pandemic, because when you don't have access to internet, suddenly you feel so isolated. And this is a good example of how internet of things works, no? And we only get to experience the lack of internet of things and internet connectivity now in this pandemic. Then of course the rise of cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, um, and then on-demand economy or gig economy, like for example Spotify. This rose from, I don't want to buy the whole album. I just want to stream music, one song at a time. I don't really have to own the MP3 even. I just want to hear it like once or twice or whatever. And of course, we have the ride hailing apps like Uber, Grab, and Angkas. Basically addresses mass transport problems not only in the Philippines but all over the world. And we can expect that there are many digital solutions that are going to be proposed, that are going to be introduced, to be able to address social issues in our society. And another set of advancements that we see in the fourth industrial revolutions are biological in nature. First, we are having so many advances in terms of genetic mapping and engineering, and I've discussed before GMOs, no, genetically modified organisms. And then due to genetic mapping, we now are close to getting cure for cancer, getting cure for HIV, and also trying to map how genes are able to predict aging, and how these genetic maps will be able to help us in terms of addressing aging, halting aging, or slowing down aging. And then of course synthetic biology, creating tissues out of materials. So that's something that we get to see also, like what we watch in Marvel when they created Vision. So that's an example of synthetic biology. And we see a lot of advancements in healthcare as well. Um, Now we have so many solutions like vaccines, medicines, surgeries, therapeutics that are not available during the past, and now we have them now. And of course, we'll be able to see more medical solutions in the future. Hopefully, we get to see the vaccine and the treatment for COVID-19 in the future as well. And everybody's working on that on the science community. And of course, anti-aging research, I just talked about it earlier. And neurotechnology, trying to see how we can control stuff by just thinking about them, putting pads on your head, trying to study brain waves and how brain waves will be able to control things. That's really high tech. What they're using it now, especially for rehabilitation. Like if you've lost your limbs and you have a prosthetic limb, and you want to be able to make that prosthetic limb move at your will, neurotechnology can help you in terms of like putting paddings or putting nodes in the head and being able to study brain waves, so that you'll be able to control the inanimate object, which is your prosthetic leg. So that's an exciting thing that we are able to see in the future, hopefully, after all this COVID-19. Things that we have to also think about when we like hear these things and get so excited about, hey, we have self-driving vehicles, hey, we have internet of things and increased connectivity, our lives are easier, hey, we have more solutions to medical problems and we can extend our lives, we can improve the quality of lives. We also get to ask ourselves like, are these technologies contributory to society? Can these technologies also disturb society, interrupt societal interactions, change society? Will it have positive or negative consequences? And it is very important for us to not just take technology, mindlessly. We always have to critique whether or not these technologies are things that we can trust, and let's try to predict whether or not it can cause some issues in our society later. And therefore, one way to be able to examine the relationship of these technologies to society is critical social theory. We discussed this before, positivism, constructivism, and the third one is critical social theory. Um, and it's a theoretical tradition in the social sciences that basically aims to provide critique of modernity. Because um, if you were born in the modern period, if you were born in this fourth industrial revolution, it's easy to take for granted that the things that we see every day are normal. But we always have to also think about, are the things that we see normally happening in our lives, like cell phones, internet, medical technologies, material production, self-driving cars. This seems normal at this time, but is it really something that we ought to look at a more critical level? And critical social theory helps us to be able to look at these things in that level. And one of the things that is characteristic of fourth industrial revolution is the increased production of knowledge, and it is always very important that we understand what this knowledge is for. And therefore, let's look into two basic strategies to be able to critique knowledge, or knowledge-based critique. And these two strategies are knowledge as regulation and knowledge as emancipation. So basically, these two uh, ideas look into what does ignorance or lack of knowledge stand for, and what does knowledge stand for. So in knowledge as regulation, it argues that ignorance causes chaos, and knowledge about things causes order. So this is like the most basic things, di ba? When you say knowledge is power, or knowledge makes the world go round. So, and if people are ignorant, the more chaotic the world becomes. And that's like the most unilateral way of looking at it. But also, another idea that is that we can use for knowledge-based critique is knowledge as emancipation. So, according to knowledge as emancipation, ignorance is um, due to colonialism and alienation, and knowledge is for solidarity. So sometimes people are kept ignorant because they want to be subdued or oppressed. So the people who are oppressed in society, who are colonialized, who are dominated, are the ones who are kept ignorant. And one way to emancipate them is to provide them knowledge. So, in terms of critical social theory, the better way of looking at the function of knowledge in society is knowledge as emancipation. So, it's not just we want knowledge because we want to create order and dominate people. You know, we give knowledge because we want to emancipate people. We want people to gain power over the knowledge that they get. So that's the second one, which is more closely related to critical social theory. And in our many lectures since the beginning of this class, we have already established that science and technology is not completely neutral. It's not completely apolitical. Science and technology is highly biased towards somewhere. You know, it's highly influenced by society. So, what are the ideologies that come with science and technology? First, science and technology controls people and maintains inequality. So some examples of that is that science and technology is the reason why we have armed conflict, or it increases armed conflict. We have guns, we have tanks, we have explosions because of science that fuels armed conflict. And of course, as we all know, wars increases inequality. Those who are victims of conflict are most likely going to experience socioeconomic oppression. And then, of course, mass media and information technology has been used to propagate inequality and fake news. That's one way that science and technology has contributed to that as well, by having mass media. And then, of course, industrial technologies that has displaced a lot of laborers because of robotics, automation, and these material technologies. And of course, science has been used to justify racial and gender inequalities. Like, there are scientists who actually says that the evolution of man, the highest form of man are Caucasians, trying to justify why there's white supremacy. So Again, that's a scientific fact that was skewed in order for racial inequality to flourish. And even gender inequalities, like for example, trying to find that there's no biological basis for being lesbian or gay. So science has been used in order um, to discredit the liberations that are being sought for by LGBTQIA people. Next, science and technology requires, enables power relations. So again, science and technology is biased to where the power sources are. So science and technology widens the gap between the rich and the poor because again the rich are the ones who are able to produce science. If I my example will always be the video that I asked you to watch, the one with Hassan Minaj. It tries to explain that Coca-Cola has funded a lot of research on exercise to be able to discredit the narrative that it is sugary drinks, sugary carbonated drinks that increase the risk for obesity. So again, where the power is, where the socioeconomic power is, and the eliteness is, that is where um, we have more science and technology. Technological opportunities are also based on socio-political landscape. Like for example, in North Korea, they fund more research on armed conflict, on nuclear warfare, because of the political agenda of their leader. And of course, in the Philippines, a lot of research for agrarian reform and agriculture has been diminished because some of our legislators, you know, the person, no, are not very keen in terms of funding research for agriculture and would rather put this money elsewhere. So again, the political landscape of a certain state or country or community influences how science and technology flourishes in that area. So now let's go to the different frameworks for analyzing the relationship of science, technology, and society. So this is kind of the culminating lesson for everything that we've learned. So every time there's new technology coming up, whenever there's a new knowledge that is being brought into this world or into our community, how should we analyze its potential impact to society, and how do we say if it's good, how do we say if it's bad, and how do we change our lives because of the introduction of that given technology. So there are four frameworks in terms of analyzing them using critical social theory, and we will go through them one by one. Okay, so first we have instrumentalism. So instrumentalism, basically the mantra is technologies are tools. So it means that technologies are made because they have to be utilizable to mankind. So what are the questions for the most simplistic framework? One, does technology have a goal acceptable to human beings? Because if it's not a good technology. So if it's not, it will not do anything good for humans, then why do we have that technology anyway? So can technology be used? And is technology effective in achieving the goal for which it was designed? And from an instrumentalist framework, we see that certain technologies become obsolete because they are not usable anymore. For example, I don't know if you've heard of cassette tapes, no, but or diskettes. So these are storage forms of music and information in my time in the 90s. But you don't see them now. Why? Because they are no longer utilizable in society. There are far more better, more effective ways to store your music and to store your data. Okay, so because diskette before only had 1 MB. Now we have 5 terabytes, 20 terabytes, hard drives, and SSDs. So, there. So, instrumentalism, technology is good if it is usable for mankind. Next, contextualism. So, technologies have a socio-political context, meaning that technologies come into this world because it tries to address social and political concerns or issues. So, for example, what are the conditions or problems that led to the development of the technology? So, that's an example of one question that we ask if we are going to use the framework of contextualism. For example, Uber and Grab. So why did we have those types of technologies and innovations? It's because we had a problem in terms of mass transport system. So that socio-political context of having a poor mass transport system led to the innovation of Grab and Uber and Angkas. Next, who are who are the actors involved in the development of tech, like scientists, funders, and what are their agendas? So again, we believe that technology doesn't happen because we just want to innovate. No, it happens because certain people have agendas, and these agendas usually are probably for increased consumption or increased consumerism, or probably to be able to control the people that they govern. So we try to look at what is the political agenda of Bill Gates, of Mark Zuckerberg, of Elon Musk, why they are doing these things. So next, what are the opposing views of the technologies who and the technologies, and who are the people who do not like these technologies, and were they consulted in the development of the technologies? Because if they were not, then probably this technology that is being produced may be something that will aim to dominate people, something to that extent. Next is techno-determinism. So we discussed this in our lecture before when we still met, no? So the mantra is technologies are independent and becomes shapers of society. So techno-determinism denies that there is a social political context. No, it argues that technologies are made because people really just want to innovate, and they will just come out naturally. As long as there's science and scientists, science will prevail, technology will be produced, and there's nothing that we can do about it. And also, when technology is introduced, society changes because of the technology, and not society producing technology. Technology is produced and society changes because of that technology. So, technodeterminism or hard determinism argues that are technologies used to aid humans or to facilitate societal development. So, meaning that we only do technology. Is this technology done to increase human functioning, to be able to increase development of society? So, next, is there evidence that technology has reshaped or may reshape human behavior? For example, the use of social media. So, social media has greatly influenced. Nobody knew that we needed social media. Social media just happened. And then, suddenly, we started creating necessities out of social media, and now we have solutions for things that we didn't for problems that we didn't know we had. So that is what techno-determinism is arguing. The solutions that are being addressed by technology are problems that we don't know that we really had in the first place. And will it reshape human behavior? SOCMED has, no, definitely it has changed the way we interact with people, the way we communicate, decreased face-to-face interactions, but also increased connectivity, even for people that we are not physically close with, no. And then, are there rigid requirements for one to use technology? Are there rigid requirements for one to use technology, and how do these impact social relations? So again, when you think about what we are experiencing now in terms of doing online classes in the context of COVID-19, we experience this, that we really have to change our behavior. We really have to go out of our way, try to learn new things. Like, for example, me, I don't know if I'm doing any of my online classes okay, or it's because I know I'm also new at doing this, but I had to learn. I have to, whip up my recording material so that I could do all these recordings. I have to go out of my way because there's so many rigid requirements, no, for me to be able to establish an online class. And I also understand that at your end, that is also the same. That you also have to, um, change a lot of your behavior so that you could meet the requirements of having a satisfying and a functional online learning, which again we didn't have before, that we had to have because of this situation. So techno-determinism. Next is soft-determinism. So soft-determinism is basically um, a marriage between contextualism and techno-determinism. So basically, it argues that technologies shape society, but is still within social context. So again, society influences technology, and technology influences society. So there. So I think this is one. This is the one that I am most attuned with in terms of all the frameworks, because I think it's balanced. No, so what are the questions that we ask if we are going to analyze this framework, this technology using this framework? One, what are the possible impacts of technology on society in terms of social, cultural, and economic aspects? Two, are the impacts positive or negative? Because again, if the impact is negative, we can always pull out the technology. Of course, not that easy, but again, society can have a say whether the technology is good or bad. Okay. And then the last question is, if these technologies do have an influence on society, are the impacts enough to change social, cultural, and economic structures of society? Because um, not all technologies that come out have an influence in society. Like for example, the mic that I'm using to record this, I don't think it's going to have any cultural change that's going to be felt by all sectors of society, unlike for example a laptop or a new cell phone, or probably AI or robotics that could have a big, but not all technologies a have a large enough impact to be felt by all sectors of society. So there. And so you can use these frameworks in order to be able to analyze, no, a certain technology that will come into the world in the next, in the next few days, or in the near future, in the remote future, and try to see what are the influences that it can do to society based on the ideological frameworks that I gave you. So of course, some technologies will require more than one, or will just require one framework in terms of trying to analyze whether they are useful to, or have a good or bad impact to society. So, as a parting note for this course, no, I'm not sure if I'm going to see you physically within the next few months, because there is an increased chance that there's enhanced community quarantine will be extended. My only wish is that the learnings that we've had in class and in these online courses that we've had will make you become more better critical thinkers, become more skeptical about the technologies that are coming up, um, how these technologies will be able to increase marginalization of sectors of society that are already oppressed, how this could magnify the bad impacts of capitalism, of globalization, of modernity, of the industrial revolution, and the different types of inequality in terms of gender, race, and ethnicity and cultural background. Um, and since that all of you are going to be bachelor holders in the future, you will be making use of the science and the technology of your field in order for you to work. It is also good to always come back and look at all of the things that you will be seeing in the laboratory, all of the things that you will be seeing as you're doing your profession, and always be skeptical and critical about how will these things affect my life, the life of the people around me, the life of the people in my state, in my community, in my society. And then, if you are given a chance to be able to advocate against the bad effects of technology and advocate for improvement in the way science is being operationalized in society, I would invite you to do that. So, I hope you learned a lot from our class. I also enjoyed being your teacher. And again, I hope that you all stay safe, stay at home, stay healthy, and let's all pull through this trying times together. And I hope to see you one day in campus when all of the dust settles. So have a nice day ahead of you. Bye!